And we welcome you to another edition of This Is Wrestling. It is Lee Versage along with ZFG Zach friggin' McGibbon. Zachary, how are you? Coming off the heels of seeing you last night. It's been tough on me too. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, Lee. Yeah, I know I was able to join you all at C4 Wrestling last night as we're recording. Was able to make the drive down from Belleville to come see the first C4 show of the year. Was a lot of fun. Enjoyed seeing you all. Got to see, of course, you, Mr. Versage, but also got to see Tanner and Ben and Le Champion, Chris Thompson, and a whole group of guys there. So it was a lot of fun. I was glad to be able to make the trip down, and just ended up being a ton of fun and chatting with everybody at C4 as well. It's always good to see the folks.
It really is. And we are here on This Is Wrestling gonna, I think up our coverage a little bit on C4. They're doing such a great job. So I think later on this week, in the next few days, we'll have an episode covering Fire and Ice, the name of the show in Ottawa, and we'll get our good buddy Tanner Ryle on and cover the event from pillar to post, as Billy Red Lions used to say. But just to give people a little bit of a preview, I thought for me, in going to the shows, one of their better shows that I have been to, and there are some reasons for that we'll get into when we cover it in depth. But I thought a very solid product from C4 to kick off 2025, and the announcement, Zach, of not only their next show, but an all-women show coming to Ottawa in the month of March as well, which I think is very exciting.
Yeah, an all-female show. It's going to be at Algonquin College. So that should be interesting to see who they book, and both of the shows that are taking place for C4 happening in March. So they've got a pretty impactful March coming up with two shows to cover. So we are going to be putting Tanner Ryle boots on the ground, getting him to work, making sure we get all the coverage from those two C4 shows. But no, it's quite exciting, and I know that C4 has done a couple of shows at Algonquin in the past. I remember when I was a student at Algonquin. Which was not last year; it was a few years ago now. But I remember going to one of the Algonquin shows for C4, and it was really well produced. It helps when you've got film students, television students that are helping to put the show together. And I think at one point, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure they had a live stream too on IWTV set up during one of the Algonquin shows. So I'm looking forward to seeing that return. It's been a couple of years since they last went to Algonquin, so also having it as a unique show in terms of being an all-female show, I think it's pretty big, and looking forward to that show when it comes down.
And I think from a production level too, it always helps when you have a little bit of elevation, right?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
And to be able to watch a show from some different angles and some elevated camera angles really helps with that. And so, yeah, looking forward to covering that. And we'll talk to Tanner coming up here in the next little bit. But we got a lot to get to, Zach, with the Royal Rumble on the way here in the next couple of weeks. And we really haven't talked a whole bunch about AEW over the last little while. And again, I think there's some really good things that are happening in AEW that sometimes get glossed over. And then there's some things that are absolutely driving me bonkers. And so, look, there's a lot to get into. But I think first and foremost, when we talk AEW, one of the things that's happened over the last couple of weeks is the return of Kenny Omega and what this is going to do for this company. Kenny Omega said a few months ago that the company really didn't need him, that they were in a really good place. And I think it's quite clear, Zach, that when Kenny Omega returned and we saw his first match in AEW since 2023, which I know we're at the beginning of 25 and so, but it's been a long time. And I don't know why Brian Cage was the first guy that they decided to put him in the ring with, but I was a little bit struck when they said that he hadn't wrestled in like a year and a half on AEW TV. And I'm like, Oh my God, that's way too long for Kenny Omega, and it was great to see him back this week.
Yeah, it was cool too to see him bring over, because I was wondering if the entrance that he came out to at Wrestle Kingdom was going to carry over into AEW, or if that was just a specific entrance for him in New Japan. But they carried over the music and they carried over the presentation for him into AEW, and I think that's so important because one of the things that they've got to do with Kenny Omega is they got to make him feel special. And he certainly has that capability when it comes to his matches and making it a big deal when he goes out there and wrestles. So I thought it was great to see him back. I know how you feel about Brian Cage, but they could easily do the marketing. That's what they did of like the Brian Cage, the Machine, versus the machine of Kenny Omega, the Best Bout Machine. And so I saw what they were doing there, and plus the ties with Don Callis. So I understood why they had him there, and that's a guy you could also have be beat by Kenny Omega too. So I thought it was a smart debut. I am excited at the possibility of all the combinations because Ospreay is involved in this, Konosuke Takeshita is involved in this feud, and Kyle Fletcher is involved. I saw a tweet recently kind of comparing it like this could be our modern, Masawa, Kobashi, Taue, Kawada. Like this could be our version in AEW, which I don't think would be that far off, to be quite honest. But I think there's a ton of possibilities, a ton of different matchups that they could do with all those four guys involved. So I think it's smart for him to be back in this feud, and it gets him into the forefront right away.
And not only the return for him, but what it means for the company. I don't think you can underestimate. Like when I saw him back, it was like they need him badly. And I thought they needed him badly, but when he came back, I'm like, obviously they do. Because, look, we can have a philosophical discussion here about how they've handled some of the stars, but I got to be honest with you. When you had to talk to me a year ago and ask me about the statuses of guys like MJF, Adam Page, Swerve Strickland. I'm like, all of these guys are sort of at the top. They're legitimate superstars that are on the cusp of doing some great things in the world of professional wrestling. I get excited. Most importantly, there's a difference between, okay, there's some good action on my screen and you're providing a little bit of different content than WWE, and there's some good wrestlers in AEW, but there's a difference between that in all companies and the people that you go to pay good, hard-earned money to watch because you care that much. And that list is obviously much shorter for people. And we can debate who that is between how you and I feel about it or the fans feel about it. But in WWE, right, there's Cody Rhodes, and some people feel that way about Roman Reigns, and I think CM Punk still has a little bit of that lure.
Yep.
But if you had asked me in AEW a year ago or a year and a half ago, I'm like, okay, I'm Bryan Danielson, check. Swerve Strickland, check. MJF, check. Adam Page, check. Bryan Danielson's gone. And I don't know. Look, there are valleys and ups and downs with everyone, but I'm glad that Adam Page is on a card that I would go to. I'm glad that MJF is there, but they're not at the level where I would pay a ticket because they are there.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they were. And I feel like AEW has let them fall off of that. And my point in all of this is that there aren't many people in AEW that I now feel that way about. Will Ospreay is absolutely number one. I feel like they're kind of dicking him around a little bit still, because they should strap the championship to him and rocket him up, because when he is on the card, I am going to pay to see that guy.
Yeah.
But how many others are there right now that you that you feel like, okay, this guy's on the card and I'm going to pay $50 to go see him. I'm going to pay $50 to watch him on pay-per-view. Well, Kenny Omega to me is another one of those guys.
Yeah, that was the name I was going to throw out there too. Yeah.
Yeah, but this is, look, sometimes I talk a lot, Zach. That's what people do on podcasts. And
they like to talk.
But bringing the discussion full circle is that when Kenny Omega appeared on my screen, he's one of the guys that I feel that way about. I need to kind of stop what I'm doing and watch because Kenny Omega is out. And I think they had it with a bunch of people, and they have it with me right now with Will Ospreay and Kenny Omega, and I don't know if the list continues. And you can have discussions about different people, and maybe other people feel that way about CM Punk, and I don't feel that way about Punk anymore. But you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, every company's got a few guys, though, that run the show and that you go to pay to watch. And when Kenny Omega came back, that's the way I felt. Another guy that I am going to stop what I'm doing, watch, and pay to see when he is performing. I'm glad he's back. He's needed back.
Very much so.
So, do you like the direction? Like, I know you said, well, some people are saying this. Do you like the direction that you see with the Golden Brothers?
Oh, has the Predict Trevor joined the stream now all of a sudden?
No, that's on the podcast? I read it. You know what? You're right. You're right. But it's a nice way to at least not mention the new champion Josiah's name. And it's a nice way to, I've seen it a lot. The Golden Brothers. I don't love it, but I get it. Do you like the direction that they're going, and where do you think they should go with Omega and Ospreay seemingly on the same side right now?
I mean, with the way that the tag team belts are going on Private Party, I would love to see them grab those tag team championships and just be part of that rebuild of that division. I mean, an Omega Ospreay tag team, like if they're not going to put Ospreay in the title scene, which they should, by the way, but if they're not going to put him in the title scene for a while, why not just have him be a focal point of another division, and especially in a tag division that really could use some juice? Because let's just face it here, Lee, Private Party, like, the clock is ticking on when those belts are coming off of Private Party, and I'm pretty confident Hurt Business is going to take it off those two. So I would love to see in the future, it's just Omega and Ospreay realizing, hey, we could be a great tag team here, and they could be the focal points of the division. And you know, in the past with AEW, that was one of the things that made that company stand out, was that they put a focus on tag team wrestling. And you know, I joked about the 4 pillars of All Japan, right? But one of the things that was also a strength of theirs is that guys like Misawa would partner with, you know, Kobashi, and he would wrestle other, you know, high-level tag teams. The whole thing with All Japan is that singles guys could also be tag team guys, and wanted to go after those tag belts. So I think that could be an interesting direction. You put some championships onto Ospreay and Omega as well, and you can eventually tease, you know, an eventual, because it is professional wrestling, and most of the time tag teams eventually fight each other. You could eventually go back to an Omega Ospreay feud in the future if you wanted to. So I think there's a lot of potential that they could do with this tag team. They could use that as an opportunity to rebuild this tag team division, and they can, you know, use it as a method to tease future feuds as well. So I think there's a lot of potential in that if they're not going to put either guy into the title scene right away.
Remind me who was one of the first AEW tag team champions. Were they the first ones or the
I think they took the belts. I think they were the second ones. They took the belts off of SCU way back in the day.
Right.
Yeah, so Omega and Hangman.
Kenny Omega and Adam Hangman Page were your tag team champions, and they did have a little dissension. And that's exactly it. You can do that. And I'm already gonna be negative about a bunch of stuff here, so I'm gonna try not to be negative. It's hard to be negative about a tag team division that you actually never see on television.
Right.
Defend the belt.
I think it's news to a lot of people listening in that Private Party are your tag team champions.
Why would you know that if you watch the show? Because they're not out defending the belts. They got the Liv Morgan schedule.
Yeah.
Of defending their belts.
That's right.
And I have no idea. Why you put the belts on Private Party as opposed to them like breaking up, as you said, because that was what was going to happen if they lost, and then never put them on television defending the belts.
Yeah.
I don't understand. Like, here's a team that's been with us since the beginning, and we got a lot of faith in them. We're gonna put the belts on. It's gonna be this great moment, and then you're never gonna see them again. What? And there's a whole other discussion. And maybe we should have it. I know we've had it before, but maybe there should be a show dedicated to the fact of how many belts there are in professional wrestling and why it has brought down the level of all of those belts. Yeah. Because everyone's got one, and you don't have time to be able to defend them properly, and they don't mean anything. And it just brings, I don't know, it just brings it all down. But that's a whole other discussion.
Yeah.
So there's a couple things that are really concerning to me, but I agree with you on it's a good discussion on if we see a lot of Kyle Fletcher and Konosuke Takeshita against Will Ospreay and Kenny Omega, whether they're tag team, whether they're singles. It feels like we're going to see that at Australia, like one of those. Like I think we actually get Fletcher and Takeshita against Ospreay and Omega in Australia. But if we don't, we'll get Fletcher and Ospreay round 3, or we could get Fletcher and Omega and Takeshita and Ospreay. But if we get those, any combinations, I think there's going to be a lot of people that will be happy about that for now until they decide to go in a different direction.
Yeah, for sure.
I got a couple of questions here for you, Zach, and I'm gonna try to not get angry about this, Zach. Okay.
I kind of see where this is going, but we'll do our best.
Do you?
Yeah. I've done this show with you now for 5 years here, Lee. I've got an idea of how things go around here.
I need you to calm me down a little bit, Zach, because I'm starting to get annoyed, Zach. First of all, because the other one branches into two different subjects. First of all, I'm going to have to get you to explain to me what in the blue hell I am watching with Jeff Jarrett talking about winning the World Heavyweights Championship and getting MJF to come out and the two of them do this insanely long, we're going to throw everything we possibly can at the window. We're going to throw Karen Angle and Kurt Angle and Alicia Toot, and we're just going to throw everything at the window and hope that one of them sticks. What the hell are they doing with MJF? I got so many questions. And I'm riled up. So I'm just going to go through all my questions, and then you're going to answer them, and I'm going to feel better.
Okay. I can't guarantee that last part, but we'll try.
Okay. What in the hell are they doing with MJF? I'm like, just period. Question mark. That's it. I don't even have to keep talking about he's in the ring verbally jousting for 20 minutes talking about the personal life of Jeff Jarrett. Why? And then, if you could tell me why Jeff Jarrett even could sniff or think about winning the World Heavyweight Championship with his current track record of what he has done in AEW. Tell me one reason that he should be like 9th on the list of contenders for the World Heavyweight Championship. Then tell me why MJF's even in the ring with the guy in the first place. And now tell me why in one promo that went on way too long that you're going to use every single thing that's trying to get heat. The fact that Kurt Angle said you need to bring my name up from 10, 15 years ago to get heat. That's awesome. That's what Kurt Angle tweeted this week. What are they doing, Zach? What is this?
Well, I mean, it's not Adam Cole MJF anymore. So I guess that's a positive if you want to look at it that way, that we're not continuing the Adam Cole stuff and MJF is going in a different direction here. Instead of being locked into the never-ending, it felt like never-ending feud with Adam Cole that should not have continued on this past year. So there's that sort of positive. Story-wise, I agree with you. It doesn't really make sense why MJF would want to go after Jeff Jarrett and why Jeff Jarrett would want to go after the World Championship. In his final year in pro wrestling, the way that he's making it out, he wants to be the world champion before, he retires. So the only thing I can think of, and this is not from a storyline perspective, more from a getting MJF back to his roots perspective of giving him a story in between, is that it could work. It might be able to work better for MJF when it comes to, getting into promo battles with Jeff Jarrett in terms of setting his character back to where it needs to be. Kind of, we saw that heel stuff, as you mentioned. I agree with you. That promo was quite long. I think that's just been an issue with MJF promos a lot of the time, especially recently, is that he's got a little bit too much free range to go on his promo, and he takes up all that time. And like you mentioned, it was like unloading everything in the holster to get something, to get some sort of pop.
Right. Like, what else is left?
Yeah.
I literally don't know. They talked about a girlfriend that nobody knows MJF has unless you're like
online. You're on social media or whatever.
Yeah. Who's never been on TV. And now Jeff Jarrett's talking about a Canadian call girl. Nobody knows in the audience who this is. So why is this relevant?
Yeah.
I understand that people kind of know the Kurt Angle, Jeff Jarrett, Karen Angle, whatever happened from one husband to another, but that was a long time ago.
Yep.
And I just don't understand any of this.
Yeah.
And you're right. Like, the point you make about MJF to me is like the best promo guy in the business. But when you tell Max that he's got 8 minutes,
he's going to use 16.
It needs to be 8.
Yes.
It doesn't need to be 16. And especially when Jarrett's then just laughing at everything MJF is saying, and he's not even getting mad.
Yeah.
So like they're throwing these things out that should be like, oh my God, I can't. And the audience is like, I can't believe he's. And Jarrett's just laughing.
Yeah.
Well, if the guy you're talking to isn't mad, why should the audience care?
Yeah.
I just didn't. Zach, what are they doing with MJF? Like,
I know.
What is the plan right now that MJF in 3 months is going to be where? Because he's doing this now. What's the answer to that question?
I honestly have no idea at this
point.
Right.
And this is one of your biggest stars.
Yeah.
And you can tell me how bad the Adam Cole stuff was. I'll take the Adam Cole stuff. Because now...
I don't know. That Adam Cole stuff was really bad.
Yeah, but at least the other guy mattered. No offense, Jeff Jarrett.
Yeah.
No offense, Jeff Jarrett. You don't matter. Because I'm not... If they're doing Jeff Jarrett as the John Cena run in WWE, and we're just going to do it with Jeff Jarrett.
Yeah.
I'm not going to. I don't care about the Cena run, and I will not care about the Jarrett run.
Right. I mean, I disagree on this. I would rather take this. Now, granted, this is a small sample size. Who knows? Maybe this is an 8-month feud, and I'm going to be.
But you just told me that you don't know where they're going. So
I know.
If you can tell me that I like the Jarrett stuff better because in 2 weeks they're going to do this and it's going to pay off at this, go ahead. Lay it out for me.
Plus, I didn't have to, see those, pre-taped skits from last year where they're, doing all these comedy, quote unquote, comedy bits last year and how they were all best friends, then no longer friends. Like, I will take this where a promo goes too long over that stuff any day of the week. But I'm not saying I like this. It's like choosing between a rock and a hard place here, Lee. I don't like these choices. I'd rather not have either of these choices on my plate. But I think that's why I see this more as sort of a reset for MJF to try and get back into, trying to get back to what made MJF great when he was coming up. By the way, also one of the lines that he should probably have kept in the holster and not blurted out is saying when wrestling fans see Jeff Jarrett, that means their favorite wrestling company is going to die. It's like, would have kept that one in the holster. I especially with the way that attendance is going at AEW. Again, before people jump on me, I'm not saying AEW is going to die or anything like that because they won't. But it's just, you don't want to give more fuel to that fire, right? On their own programming. So I would have kept that one in the holster. But otherwise, yeah, like, again, we're 2 weeks in. I see this as like, because everything is so log jammed at the top, right? Not just with the men's world title, but also the women's world title. So you got to try, we talk about having these stars on TV and still having a focus, but they definitely should be having like better selections for some of their choices. I mean, Hangman is fighting Chris Daniels and, right. MJF is with Jeff Jarrett. It's like, come on, guys, Mox is taking on Cope. Like, let's get some, fresh names in here and get some new matchups going instead of like these guys that have been on TV for over 15 years.
So Zach, you haven't even, I thought this would lead you personally. I let you go. Maybe I did an MJF and thought that you would pick up the other side of this, but I actually did all of this thinking that eventually you would get angry about the Owen Hart stuff.
Oh, and then bringing up Owen Hart, and that was the thing. That was the thing that would put Jeff over the top. Not getting the insults to himself, his wife, his alcoholism, or anything else. But
I forgot the alcoholism. That was
right.
Nice too. Yeah,
that was in there. But
seriously,
Owen Hart,
your whole life being a drunk. You've had companies go under that you were in charge of.
Yeah.
Your wife, who you picked up from another guy.
Yeah. You created your own company to be world champion.
All of those other things. This is like the entire life story of Jeff Jarrett.
Yeah. One after another, after another, after another.
And then they bring up Owen Hart. And honestly, I get the reasoning behind it because that is supposed to put someone over the top when you talk about a deceased, legend and
Yep.
somebody that everybody loved.
And Jarrett has talked about how close he was with Owen Hart as well.
I didn't think that this was done well enough to justify bringing up Owen Hart.
Yeah.
Like, look, I'm a Canadian. I'm sensitive. The guy tragically died in an accident in the ring that never should have happened. And there's a sadness there. I think if you ever bring that up, you're supposed to trigger an emotion at fans that I'm actually pissed at MJF because he brought up something that's sentimental to me.
Right.
That didn't happen. When I watched it, I was like, you've unloaded 28 barrels of things about Jeff Jarrett's life, and now you're bringing up the Owen Hart thing after the 20-minute mark, and it's like,
yeah,
what? So I think you got to be very careful when you bring up things like that it does do what you're intending it to do. And I'm okay with bringing things up that people are a little bit uncomfortable with I'm okay with it.
Me too.
But the end has to justify the means to me if you're going to do it. And it didn't. Did that pay off because he got to Owen Hart at the 18-minute mark of going through Jeff Jarrett's career? Not to me, it didn't.
No.
Okay. So
they haven't pushed it hard. Like they were trying to, relay the stuff with the Owen Hart tournament last year, and Jarrett had that showcase last year from that, and they tried to put it into this promo, but it just wasn't strong enough.
Anyway, all to say, is it leading to an MJF Jeff Jarrett match? If it is, I won't care about it. So, is it leading to some sort of partnership that they're finally going to go on the same team and go after the world title, and Jeff Jarrett's going to win the world title, and then MJF is going to take it from him like 5 seconds later?
I would hate that.
It's the only thing I could like probably about it. And getting the world title in the most devilish, sneaky way, or I just have no idea where they're actually going with this. And yeah, it's easy to say, well, then take your time and just wait. But as you said, Jeff Jarrett, Christopher Daniels, like what's happening with MJF and Adam Page, who I thought were big stars. And quite frankly, and I hate to put him into this category, Swerve Strickland with Ricochet. Like, we're going to hear from Ricochet. Oh, goody.
That was the best promo he ever cut.
It was.
Yeah.
Because he didn't say anything.
Yeah, he said like 3 words.
But if I told you last year again that the guys I brought up, MJF, Swerve Strickland, Hangman Page, I thought all guys that when they walk out, I am going to stop what I'm doing. And a year later, they are fighting Ricochet, Christopher Daniels, and Jeff Jarrett. What? Okay, so another thing I want to get to, and it's a disease that wrestling has. I think it's lazy. We've discussed on this program, I think you believe it's lazy as well, but I'll let you talk about it. Mm-hmm. But there is nothing more basic and simple and lazy when you book a match than to have the end of the match be bad guy's friends come in, beat up good guy until good guy's friends come and make the save, and then we go off of the segment.
Yep.
I don't care what you guys do in the ring. The bad guy's friends are there, and eventually they're going to get involved, and when they're going to start beating someone up, and it's going to be 5-on-1, and then somebody's music's going to hit, and then the good guys are going to come in, and then they're going to tease next week that we're mad at you. I just think it's the laziest booking ever. But I at least understand why you do it, to sort of create feuds. And when it happened at the beginning of the program, Kenny Omega, Brian Cage, the wrestling, and the Don Callis family comes out. Could you tell me, Zach, look, it's a short ramp in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
But when Kyle Fletcher and all them decided that they were going to get involved and come to the ring, how long did it take Will Ospreay to get out there?
It's pretty quick, relatively speaking.
I agree.
Yeah, it was pretty quick.
I think he got out there right away.
Yeah.
And said, you guys aren't going to do anything. You guys are not doing this. You think I'm not ready to come out and not save necessarily Kenny Omega, but I don't like you guys, and you guys aren't going to take advantage of other people. I'm going to get out there. He was out there in a flash. So now 20 minutes into your first match, you've done the Don Callis family gets involved, and after Brian Cage loses, We're all just going to attack Kenny Omega. And then very quickly, Will Ospreay's out. Don't love the booking, but okay. Don't mind it. Takeshita was out there. They're wrestling. They're doing some other stuff. They're kind of promoting that it's going to be Ospreay and Omega like we talked about against Takeshita and Kyle Fletcher. And okay, sure. Zach, who is the world champion?
The world champion currently is Jon Moxley.
What group is Jon Moxley with?
They are in the group The Death Riders.
When Jon Moxley is wrestling, do you expect to see Wheeler Yuta?
Yes.
Claudio?
Yes.
Pac?
Yes.
The Death Riders?
That's right.
They're around all the time. So when Moxley is out, you expect them to be out, do you not?
One would expect them, yeah.
Okay. And they've proven that pretty much every time that's who they are, because they're always going to be around and they're going to interfere, and they're going to beat people up at the end. So in a decent match with Moxley and Hobbs, Powerhouse Hobbs, in Cincinnati, in Moxley's hometown, Moxley wins, and then the Death Riders are in, and they're going to send a message, and they're going to kick him, and they're going to stomp him, and they're going to do all these things, and then you know what? We're going to teach this guy a lesson. We're going to put his leg in the chair, and we're going to like break his leg. Take your time, take your time, take your time. I'm like, oh, we're going to get lazy finish out here again. And someone's going to save him at the last minute. But no, Zach, I'm surprised. They do it to Powerhouse Hobbs, who for minutes after he loses to Jon Moxley is getting his ass torn apart by the Death Riders, including his leg maybe broken. And then Adam Copeland, Hope, and FTR come out. Is it the alarm clock for Adam Copeland not working? When he turned 50, did his old age just not be able to walk 3 steps? When Adam Copeland debuted in AEW, what did we say? He debuted on one of these run-ins, and then he ran his video package, and then he ran from side to side, and then he came out to help.
Yep.
He was like 4 hours late. And now, Adam Copeland and FTR, who, by the way, Zach, I just want you to know this, are in a feud with the Death Riders. They hate the Death Riders. So when the Death Riders were out making an example out of Hobbs, and the ramp is about 3 feet long in Cincinnati, Adam Copeland and FTR waited until after they busted his leg open to walk the 3 feet and come out and make the save before they went off the air. What in the hell is going on? I want to know about Adam Copeland's alarm clock and why it's not working on several occasions. And I want to know who booked this to think that made Adam Copeland and FTR look strong, because it made them look like idiots. Oh, Zach, I know I just went on a long time about the whole. So I want you to talk about the philosophy of that kind of booking, and then please tell me what is happening with Adam Copeland's alarm clock.
I was thinking the exact same thing when I was watching this. I'm just trying to envision backstage, like Copeland's just waiting, right? He's just waiting to get out there. He's like, guys, hit my music, please. I need to go out there. You got to hit my music. I can't go out there unless you hit my music. his legs getting beaten up. Hit the music, please. Like he feels restrained because he has to wait for the music to hit. And then finally the music hit, then he's able to run out. So Cope should be mad at the AEW production team for having...
By the way, Will Ospreay's music did not hit when he came out.
Right.
He just came out.
Yeah, he just came out.
Okay.
More promotion should do that, by the way. I know that people love the pop that comes when the music hits, but I think the pop gets it's actually a better pop when you look across and there's this guy running, and all the audience realizes who it is. It's the anticipation pop as opposed to the instant pop, right? So I would much rather like these guys just run out, no music, and come out, because you're still going to get a pop because these are stars that you're still putting up, right? But all that to say, yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, I thought the match itself was a solid little match. I think Hobbs has been getting better and better, and I've been enjoying him. I think he's one of those guys that continues to get better in that system in AEW, and so I like seeing his growth. But yeah, this did not make Copeland look good. It was like, why are you taking so long? Why you just go out there, FTR, go out there, help out your guy, you know? And it was like that. It's funny you mentioned, like, you know, bad guy beats up on good guy's friends come out. We had like 3 different instances of that on this show, because we had that, we had at the start, and we also had that during the Hook match too. So it's just like, you know, I'm glad we've hired all of these people from WWE's creative team in 2019 to come up with these original finishes and these original angles of guy getting beaten up, friends of guy come out to make save. Brilliant. Another genius idea coming from this creative team over at AEW. But nonetheless,
and this was, and not to interrupt you, but this is a WWE disease that they've had over the last few years.
Yes,
that they've done less lately than they used to, and I hate it. They did it all the time.
Yeah,
and now since the end of November at Full Gear, how AEW ended the pay-per-view with everyone and their grandmothers running out at the end.
Yes,
that's all they've done for 2 months.
Yeah,
that's like the only way they know how to book.
Yeah, it's like it's crazily when you hire people that were part of one of the worst eras of WWE. Every WWE fan agrees with that, right? That 2017 to 2019 period, 2019 especially, that it was not a good period for WWE. So you mean to tell me when you hire the writers from that era and you bring them into your company and they start booking stuff that makes it similar to stuff you would see in WWE 2019, that there would be a correlation there? Oh my God. If only somebody could have foresaw that when they hired these people coming in, and you want to expand out your writing team for some reason, and you're like, oh, we need more people in the room to give ideas, because as we know in wrestling history, when you have so many people in the room, all it is just all these great ideas coming out, nonstop, right? So it's just wild to me.
Yeah. Let me give you an example too, and I'll make it a non-wrestling example.
Sure.
Because this is, I texted this to a number of people last weekend, and because I know it's big football weekend coming up, and you know, when Nick Sirianni loses to the Rams, I'll be very happy. But in saying that, I texted a picture, and the picture was of the Fox panel before the games last weekend. And Zach, when you have, so on one panel, okay, on one panel, there is Kurt Menefee, who might be the worst host in all of sports, on a panel. Mm-hmm. It's actually disgraceful in how bad he is. And then on the same panel, Terry Bradshaw can't put 4 words together anymore. Howie Long, I could take him or leave him. At least he's a little succinct when he talks. I don't love him, but fine. Michael Strahan, I could do without, but I get the appeal. But then you have Rob Gronkowski, who's trying to challenge Terry Bradshaw for the least amount of words you can get out that are coherent in a sentence, and Jimmy Johnson. The 6 of them are on a panel, and the panel is like 4 minutes long by the time they're trying to answer a question. And Rob Gronkowski is trying to say one thing about Bill Belichick and Mike Vrabel, and it takes them a minute to spit out one sentence.
Yeah.
And you got 6 people on the panel, and no one can talk, and you're trying to do all of this. And my whole point to the group was that, and then look at Sunday Night Football. They have 2 people on their panel. 2. And they went from Tony Dungy, and now it's Chris Sims and Jason Garrett. But they don't clutter your television screen. And when people are trying to get out ideas, less is more.
Yep.
Same thing with the writing in wrestling. Get the right people in, and then less is more.
Yep.
And as you said, this product is not getting better. 3 times on the same show. Bad guys out, bad guys' friends come in, jump people, good guys finally, when it comes to Copeland, who they're making look like an idiot.
Yep.
And I hope he gets out of this, but there is no special quality about Adam Copeland right now in AEW, and that really sucks, because I did not feel that way about him before.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that way about him now. Okay, Zach, I left the best until last here.
Okay.
Because even though I think I know how you're going to answer it, I'm going to try and make some sense of this. And you'll probably try and justify it. We'll see. But I'm going to need you to explain to all of the listeners the philosophy behind something that AEW is doing. So last week, not the week we just passed, but the previous week on Dynamite, I watched a triple threat match with Willow Nightingale and Tony Storm and Chris Statlander, with the winner receiving the number 1 spot in the women's gauntlet match, and the winner, the number 1 contendership, on the line to face Mariah May in Australia. When I was watching that, I'm like, oh, the number 1 spot. I guess it's like the best spot or the last spot. It's like getting number 30 in the Royal Rumble. That's awesome. Chris Statlander has the best chance to win that match.
Right.
Because she won. I'm like, oh, that's great. Chris Statlander's got the best chance to win. Good for her. And then this week, I come out, and she's first out. And I'm like, what is going on? And then the second wrestler comes out, which was, I have to get the order now.
It's Jamie Hayter was the second one.
Jamie Hayter. So now Chris Statlander and Jamie Hayter are wrestling in the ring. Understanding the match can end at any time. Who was third out, Zach?
I don't remember who third out was. Was it Willow Nightingale?
It was Willow Nightingale.
Yes.
So you're going to tell me, I'm asking in a certain way, but I'm still trying to be fair and asking the question. Chris Statlander had to win a triple threat against 2 of the better women wrestlers in AEW, Willow Nightingale and Tony Storm. And for the win, she got the prize of coming out first and having a minute 58 to try and beat Jamie Hayter. And if she didn't, she's actually at a massive disadvantage because she's more tired than other people. Oh, Willow Nightingale, who was in that match and lost, comes out third and now has a better advantage because she's fresher than the 2 people in the ring. But wait, Zach, it gets better.
Oh, boy.
Because then as the Julia Harts come out and
Harley
the other
Cameron.
women's, Harley Cameron coming out, who were not involved in that triple threat match, who now have I guess they got really lucky that the match didn't end in 52 seconds, and now they're out there. Harley Cameron and Julia Hart have more of an advantage than the people who were in the triple threat last week. But now we get to the fact that Toni Storm is going to come out, who was also in that triple threat last week and lost. And she comes out 7th. And a small package later, and Toni Storm wins. Well, no wonder she was able to do it. She's fresh. Zach, you're going to have to help the listener and me understand the philosophy of we're going to have a triple threat match, and the winner's going to get the number one spot, and the number one spot's the worst spot in the whole thing. And we gave more of an advantage to all of the other people that were in it. And I get it, Zach, before you tell me that it's some 21-woman thing and not everyone gets a chance to get into the match and how lucky you are to just get in the match and number one guarantees you, stop it. This is one of the dumbest things I've ever seen, and trying to explain this to an audience who really doesn't get it to begin with. Honestly, this is so idiotic to me. I need you to help me. Chris Statlander wins a massive match against two other great wrestlers the week before, and for that gets the advantage of coming out first in a match where all of her competitors are going to be more fresh, trying to win the number one contendership spot for a match against Mariah May in Australia. Explain.
Well, you snooze, you lose, Chris Statlander. You gotta do it within the allotted time before the next competitor comes out.
Right. So she's expected to beat, because she won last week in a grueling match against two other superstars in the world of AEW women's wrestling, in Toni Storm and Willow Nightingale, two of the very better ones. Because of that, she got the ability that if she could be another great wrestler in a minute 50, that's the advantage.
There's been matches that have ended in less than 2 minutes. I can think of some Goldberg matches like that. I use that purposely.
Okay, fine. Did you think this one was going to end?
You never know, Lee. It's a gauntlet. It could end at any time.
Okay.
I don't have that much of an issue with it, to be quite honest. I get your point. I see it. I just think that a lot of these wrestlers as well, I kind of go in, they're also trained to go the distance as well. So I didn't really have that much of a problem with it. What I have an issue with the gauntlet is I think it's just overused now. They've used this way too many times, and now it's not as special. And so, like, it feels like we've gotten a gauntlet every couple of weeks when it comes to this stuff. And this was something that, you know, when it was first being introduced, it's like, oh, this is a nice little match type that AEW has established for themselves, and something that makes them different, and it focuses on the in-ring of the wrestling while still having that, you know, Rumble aspect of like, oh, who's going to come out next. So I thought it was something unique to them that they could utilize. So I did not have an issue. I see your point. I don't really have an issue with it because I still think she has the advantage. She just wasn't able to put away her person in the allotted time, and you have to like wrestle to that time.
The allotted time is not 15 minutes down the road. The allotted time is like a minute 50, and you're going to have to beat another great wrestler in a minute 50, or else you're actually at a disadvantage. And I just want to point out again that the person who lost last week got the most advantage and won this match. It's not that she just won the match, even though she lost last week. Toni Storm was still in the gauntlet somehow, even though she lost. Maybe make last week's match Chris Statlander and Harley Cameron and Jamie Hayter, and if you win, you're in the gauntlet. If not, you're out. Like, Tony Storm lost the match last week, and this week came in the most fresh and then won the match.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me how that's an advantage for the person who won last week. It's like winning the President's Trophy in the NHL. What do you get? Well, maybe the hottest team in the league that's won 10 of 12 coming into the first round of the playoffs. Awesome.
Yep. I mean, I don't know. I don't have that much of an issue with it. I see it, but I don't think it's that big of a problem. I really don't. I think could there be like a change of, like this is a number one thing, and if you don't win, you don't take part in the gauntlet. Sure, I could buy into that, but Statlander still has the advantage of being able to, get the victory at any point in the match. It's not like with the Rumble where they come out first and then she, like, if it was a Rumble and she threw out, Hayter and eliminated her, she still has to wrestle more. Like, then that's not the advantage. So I personally don't have an issue with that logic gap. If you wanted to say make the interval a little bit longer, sure, I could get invested in that. But I don't know. She had the opportunity to win. She didn't win, and people lose. Like I don't really have a problem with this. They've used this stipulation too much for sure. I think they got to cut back on this gimmick and save it for bigger occasions. But otherwise, I really don't have an issue with this.
The only way that this works is that that Chris Statlander wins last week and then gets Jamie Hayter in and then beats her and doesn't allow Tony Storm and Willow Nightingale and everybody else to get there because she really did take advantage of the advantage that she was given.
Yep.
But I'm telling you, a minute 50 before the third person comes out and you're not in there with a stiff and Jamie Hayter, you're not beating her in a minute 50. It's not happening. So after, like, the chances of you beating Jamie Hayter in a minute 50, logically, are next to zero. And if you don't, you're actually now at a disadvantage. This logic makes zero sense to me. Zero. And if the next time, unless they pull the trigger on somebody winning this, like, the number one spot, and then actually winning this gauntlet before everyone else has a chance to get out, unless they pull the trigger on that, the next time they run this is for the number one spot triple threat match, I'm out. I'm going to turn the channel and not watch because I know that next week, whatever this was, doesn't matter to how next week's going to turn out. Yeah. It actually doesn't matter at all.
Well, she still has the advantage, though. Like, she still had it. She just didn't take advantage of the advantage.
What do you mean? Did Jamie Hayter have the same advantage?
Yeah, and she didn't take advantage of that either. Because number one and number two is practically the same thing. We joke about that with Rumbles.
Jamie Hayter wasn't even involved in the match last week.
Randomized.
Okay.
I really don't think just because the other person won doesn't mean she didn't have the advantage. She had the advantage. She didn't take advantage of the advantage. That happens in matches.
There is no advantage to going in there with a world-class athlete and not beating them in a minute 50, and now you're at a disadvantage. There's no logic in that to me. And okay, we've exhausted this, but I'm saying between the three run-ins and what in the hell they're doing with MJF and Jeff Jarrett, and to me, no logic in this women's gauntlet, which I thought was a terrible gauntlet anyway. I thought this match was terrible. So I just watched Dynamite. I'm like, there's not a lot of good I got out of this. Like, what good did I get out of this? And you know what? The only good I did get out, and it's someone that we had a chance to see at C4 as well, and that's Megan Bayne.
Yeah.
Who debuted in AEW in Cincinnati on Wednesday. And I don't know what happened with Camille, but when I look at Megan Bayne, I'm like, well, maybe you should have had Megan Bayne come in and take out Camille and be the bodyguard for Mercedes Moné instead of Camille, if that's the direction that you wanted to go. But seeing her in person at C4 last night was like, this is a presence. This woman looks and presents herself differently than other women that we've seen. She looked like a star last night at C4, and I was really excited to see her on AEW.
Yeah, it was very clear who was the one on TV and who were not. And granted, for those that were in that match, there's some of those people are still kind of new to the independent scene, but it sticks out, right? When you see who the TV star is and who are the people that are on the independents.
No question. So that was a positive. Yeah. So this is just all from Dynamite the last couple of weeks.
Yeah. Can I say something quickly about AEW before we? Yeah. Because there's something that is absolutely like, this is just like, I can't believe they planned this improperly. So Lee, what time is the show for the Australia show, Grand Slam for AEW?
Oh, I don't know. What time?
Well, here's the funny thing, Lee. They were promoting this at 8 o'clock on TNT and simulcasting on Max. This was going to fill in on Collision. And the show, the Australia show, takes place on the 15th of February, right?
Yeah.
What else is taking place on the 15th of February on TNT at 8 o'clock? Lee, it's the NBA All-Star Weekend.
Oh, God.
And so they were promoting, Lee, that they were going to do the Australia show at 8 o'clock on TNT at the same time as the All-Star Skills Competition. That was already predetermined, scheduled,
right?
All of that. And so they realized that mistake. And so if you go to the graphic right now on AEW, you go to the graphic for Australia, it doesn't show where it's going to be streamed. I have no idea where the show is going to be broadcast.
Oh my gosh.
They planned a show for 8 o'clock Australia time, and it's not going to be live because it would be like 2:30 in Eastern time in our area. And so they were planning on having that pre-taped show play later in the day in prime time. But they don't know where it's going to be played, Lee. It's not going to be on TNT because the All-Star Weekend. It might be on TBS, who knows? But would TNT want to, counter-program itself with two big shows on its networks?
No.
What's going to take priority? The NBA is going to take priority.
Oh, it's not even a question.
Not even a question. Lee, how do you screw that up? You're a professional company. How do you not know where your show is going to be broadcast? That's
well. How do you not know that the All-Star game is going on that weekend and TNT has the coverage? So you either have another way that you were going to stream this if that's the direction you wanted to go, or you weren't going to do it on that day.
Right.
One of those two things. But I mean, you either are going to do it on that day anyways and stream it somewhere else, and you got a bigger, better plan to let people know about it because you're going to have to, because they're not going to be able to stream it in the normal places. So you're going to go like guns a-blazing twofold to promote the fact that it's going to be somewhere else, or you don't do it on that day. And the fact that this is like this on the middle of January, that's
unacceptable.
That's a big screw up.
That's a massive screw up.
Yeah.
You know what that is, Lee? And you want me to fire up some AEW fans with this phrase? That's a sloppy shop right there of what AEW is doing. That's unacceptable. Like, you cannot, you got to know when your show is being broadcast, especially at this point. And so right now the rumor is that they might show the Australia show after the All-Star Skills Competition, which means it would air at 11 o'clock, which means the show that had already been taped will have been like 16, 18 hours old.
And won't end if they do it at 11 o'clock Eastern time.
Right.
It's not going to end until the way AEW, especially a big show like that, they've been known to go at least 4 hours.
Yeah. If at best, if it's a 2-hour show, it's going to go till 1 o'clock.
What's that?
At best, if it's a 2-hour show, it'll go to 1 o'clock. If they start at 11, if that show starts at 11, it will go to 1 o'clock if it's a 2-hour show.
But isn't it it's not a pay-per-view. It's just a show?
Lee, I don't know. I don't know. It's like, I think it's a show, they've been promoting it as its own thing. It's not a pay-per-view. They were promoting it on TNT, then they took the TNT stuff off, and now I don't know where it's going to be streamed. I don't know.
Oh my god,
that's unbelievable. That is completely unacceptable as a wrestling company to not know when your show is airing. Like, how is that possible? That's like, Lee, that is, and I use this sparingly, but this is like late 90s, 2000s WCW stuff right there.
I want to disagree with you because I hate that. Like, that's the worst of the worst.
Yeah.
But oh my god.
That is so, like, that should be like brought to Tony Khan and be like, Tony, what's going on here? Where is the structure?
What do you mean brought to Tony Khan? Tony Khan should be in charge of this.
Yeah.
So, just so that people have a little bit of clarity, the event starts at 5:30 Australia time, which is 2:30 in the morning our time.
Correct.
And they're not going to air it until 11 o'clock, maybe 11:30. And those NBA competitions don't end at a certain time. They end when they end.
Yep.
Guys are lollygagging, talking to people in the crowd. Like, the 3-point contest takes forever. So that event that's not a hard out at 11 o'clock.
No.
So that goes to 11:30, and then you put your wrestling event on, and it's a 4-hour wrestling event. Even if it's a 2-hour event, it goes till 1:30 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and it's going to be the end of that show is going to border on a 24-hour delay from when the show started. Wow.
I'm just sending you the graphic for the Tony Storm Mariah May match, and just look at the graphic. And notice how it says TNT Stream on Max, Saturday, February 15th, Brisbane, Australia, but there is no time associated on that.
Right.
That's just unacceptable.
And even if they figure this out, for them to tell people just a couple of weeks before it happens and then expect that people are going to like understand or like, oh yeah, no problem. Whenever you tell us to watch, we'll just watch. You're right. That is unacceptable.
Sloppy Shopley.
I'm disappointed in that.
Me too.
I'm really disappointed because you want to believe that the company that you love or that you want to love is doing things that are going to make it better and not tear it down into the ground. And this is a big screw up. And this not only is it a big screw up, but it makes you doubt whether they're going to be like, if this is the stuff that's going to continue to happen, this company's not going to go in a great direction. And again, that doesn't mean they're folding tomorrow or anything else. No. But it does mean that these are the type of mistakes that compound into massive issues for the company.
Absolutely.
Oh.
I saw that and it blew my mind. That was the state it was in.
That's hard to believe, but
it blew my mind.
Okay, I'm just gonna hit you with a couple of things before we go, because this has been a fantastic show, basically because we've ripped apart AEW. But look, and for all the people who have sat here, I get it. Like, if you're a WWE lover and you are good enough to listen to our podcast, we appreciate it, and we've torn down WWE a lot. I feel like it's been worthy of those comments, but I get it. It's like if you love something and you're going to hear people tear it down all the time, then you're going to think, oh, they just love one thing and they hate the other thing, and why am I going to listen? So I do understand. I hope that we can be fair, and I hope that a discussion like this on AEW today shows you that we want all of it to be better.
Yep.
And that's why I think we do it. It's not just to tear it down. It's like, you're bringing this up. I'm bringing all these things up because I don't think that they're good for business, and I want the business to be better. And the same thing with the WWE. I mean, there's some frustrations there too, but they are doing, some good things. And I think we've pointed out some of those good things. One thing I would absolutely love to point out was, and I think you did as well, was the shirt that you saw, the shirt that Kevin Owens
yes
wore, because of course the son of a plumber, right, is what Cody Rhodes. I'm just trying to bring it up here, Zach.
Dusty Rhodes, son of a plumber.
Dusty Rhodes, son of a plumber. And what did Kevin Owens have on?
Kevin Owens had the Canadian Dream, son of a security systems technician.
Incredible.
Loved it.
Little touches like that in a feud, incredible. And I just think every time you give Kevin Owens a chance to show a little personality and do some really good stuff, he does. Before we go, I do want to ask you about two things. Number one, well, I'll just put them both out there and you can talk. Both the Corey Graves deleted tweet, not happy about being put down to NXT. Do you think it's real? Is it a shoot? Is it a work? Does it matter? And number two, I got to give you your flowers, Zach. Able to predict that Penta was the luchador.
Oh, yeah, it really could have been anybody. I know.
Could have been anybody, but you nailed it. You sniffed it out and said, guys, I think it's going to be Penta.
Yeah.
And guess what? It was Penta. So what did you think of the debut of Penta, and what do you think about the Corey Graves situation?
Sure. I'll start with the Corey Graves stuff. So I think it's one of those, because Corey Graves is a weird tweeter. He sometimes has these weird tweets in the middle of the night that he'll put out. And when I saw that as another one of his weird tweets that he put out. And then, so the way I saw it was, I thought that initial tweet talking about how he was upset with being put down into NXT, and not only being put down, but having to be a color commentator with Booker T is the worst punishment I can imagine. But he's down in NXT, and he put out that tweet talking about how he worked, over the last 10 years to get to a certain spot. Now he's at a lower spot. And then I think he tried to recover himself by saying, I've got more to say on NXT, and trying to turn it into an angle and try and make it something for himself. Obviously, Corey Graves has not been on NXT, nor has he been, apparently he was the commentator on WWE Speed. I was not aware of that because I do not watch WWE Speed, but he was also removed from that programming as well. So I think it was one of those, shoots that he tried to turn into a work, but it backfired on him. So I think he's currently suspended. I don't think he's going to get fired. I don't see that happening. I think that Corey Graves expressed some frustrations in the middle of the night. Didn't expect how much talk there would be from him expressing his frustrations. And I think he is paying the price for it, because even if, and quite frankly, even if it was a work and it's building up to a program with Pat McAfee, Lee, are you really that excited for a Corey Graves, Pat McAfee match in the future? Does that scream excitement to you?
Are you really that excited? Are you excited at all? Could you care less? Those should be the options.
Yeah.
I would go with C. I could care less.
I could care less too. It's not like Corey Graves was a miracle worker when he was a wrestler. So yeah, I could care less if it ends up being one of those worked shoots. I'm sure that the fan base that I do like to poke fun at, I'm sure that fan base will tell you how it's great cinema and it's great storytelling and all this, but I could really care less. When it comes to the Penta debut, I thought it was really well done. I liked the way that he's presented. It was funny seeing the masks being on sale. I'm like, man, like I know people bring up because apparently Penta had his own agreement with Lucha Republic, which is like a t-shirt and mask seller. And so AEW couldn't sell the mask, but I'm like, man, you got to try and find something to make that work. You know, your company, he's under your employee. Well, he's an independent contractor, I should say, but you got to find a way to make that work, right? Like when you see a money-making opportunity, like how often the guy has a cool mask. You don't think wrestling fans want to wear a cool mask to a wrestling show? Like it's basic selling of merchandise 101. Like somehow a lot of these companies like WWE figured it out because you want to talk about a company that knows how to make money. That's WWE. WCW, for some reason, decided we're going to unmask Rey Mysterio and just take off all the potential marketability with selling the mask, right? And so I look at that and see the mask being sold, and yes, while they are $75 and way overpriced, they're going to sell like hotcakes because I thought the debut that Penta had was good. He was a little shaky at the start. There were a couple of moves that didn't land at first. I wasn't as blown away by some of the moves as I think others were, and I think that just goes to, you know, for us, you and I, Lee, we're just people that watch a lot of different promotions, and I think if you're a WWE viewer, and I find with the WWE fan base, they don't watch a lot of other stuff, the majority of them, and so when they see Penta doing that Mexican Destroyer, as it's being called there, and seeing Gable sell the move, they get blown away by that, because who could believe it, Lee? People really like cool-looking moves. Really cool-looking moves. And I am a big fan of really cool-looking moves as well. And a lot of people like really cool-looking moves. And so Penta did a really cool-looking move, and people were like, wow, that's a really cool-looking move. And so I thought the debut was a good showcase. I thought his music wasn't the greatest. And I thought what Cole said about Penta when he came out, I don't know if you caught this, but Michael Cole called Penta the second best luchador. It's like, why would you say that? Just call him one of the best luchadors in the world. What?
Yeah. Well, look, and I don't want to defend it because I did hear it, but number one, they're trying to pay respect to the greatest luchador of all time who is still in their company. And then number two, do you not believe that at some point, maybe even at WrestleMania, we're going to see Penta and Rey?
Oh, probably. We'll see that match.
Okay, so if we're going to see Penta versus Rey, and they've already described Penta as the number two luchador of all time, then it does set up to face the greatest luchador of all time. So if there is reasoning behind him saying that, I can deal with that. If that's just planting the seed because we're going to get Penta and Rey, then that's fine. I actually don't mind that at all. But if it's said for no reason at all, and we're never going to have some sort of who's the best luchador ever, then it's a really stupid thing to say.
Yes.
So I'll give them the benefit of the doubt because even you just answered that, yeah, we're probably going to get Rey and Penta at some point.
Yeah.
So if we get that, they're going to build it as who's the greatest luchador of all time, and this is planting a seed for it. So I can live with Michael. I can live with Michael Cole saying that.
He just annoys me a lot, Michael Cole. He
does.
He annoys me a lot.
Sometimes because we get good commentary, and look, I think AEW's commentary team, for the most part, whether it's Excalibur, whether it's Nigel McGuinness, and I know we get some Shivani and some Taz, and I'm not a big Daddy Magic guy on commentary, but I feel like we don't get it pushed down our throats like Michael Cole pushes it down our throats.
Yeah. Oh,
and we get we get a little bit more objectivity. Objectivity is not even the right word because they're not objective either
Right.
in AEW, but it's a little more realistic in some of the things that they say, as opposed to just the branding and the promotion that we just always get from Michael Cole. But hey, that's his job. I never really take it too personally. His job is to go out there and say it. It's my job and your job to read between the lines and not accept some of the things that he says just because he says it.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I still think there is a role of an announcer. And I've heard this, when Lance Russell was in Memphis and Jim Ross, when he was the lead announcer for WWE and Bob Geigel and all the announcers, right? There still has to be some credibility as the lead announcer. And I just don't see the credibility coming from Cole. I just feel like I'm getting sold stuff,
There has to be. Look, I'm going to try to clarify this. Okay. I don't like the setup, and it's great that you, from a journalistic point of view, come from, there has to be some credibility, but this is just a brand and a promotion. There doesn't have to be, this isn't ESPN or NBC covering an event. This is their own event. And I get super annoyed at listening to home team broadcasters in any sport when I'm listening to a hockey game or go. For those who want a pretty good example, please, in baseball or football, go listen to a preseason game broadcasted by those teams.
Oh, yes.
It's unwatchable. but that's because the teams are in the promotion business of their own team, and there is no credibility in what these people are saying on the air. None. Zero. But that's kind of what wrestling is too. And while I agree with you, I would like some, I'll call it some faux objectivity, because it's not real objectivity. It's not ESPN coming in and covering an event and telling it like it is. It's just a different way of going about it. I like that in broadcasting and wrestling, like to think that these people are being somewhat objective instead of it just being pushed down my throat, the branding of the company. But let's make no mistake, there doesn't have to be anything. This isn't a television station covering, like if Netflix was providing their own announcers, yeah, okay, but they're not. So I like it in wrestling when, as you mentioned, the Lance Russells and the Jim Rosses, and like I like that kind of stuff. Nigel McGuinness comes across, yeah, he cheers for the bad guys a little bit, but I feel like I'm getting something.
Yep.
I like that as a viewer, but there doesn't have to be that. The WWE is just an example of, we're not even going to pretend anymore. We're just going to shove this down your throat, and you will do what we tell you, and what you will like what we tell you to like.
Yep.
And that's how they do it. I don't agree with it, but they don't need to hold themselves to any standard like the networks do.
Right.
Like Zach McGibbon in Belleville does. Right?
Right.
Standards are high in Bell Vegas. When those stop signs fall down and need to be put back up.
Oh, the first one there. First one there.
And 17 construction workers are watching the 18th guy put it up. And they tell you that it needed 18 people. Zach McGibbons of the world are going to tell you they only needed one. 17 watched. They didn't need 18 to pay 18. And where's that money coming from? City of Belleville? See, that's the kind of accountability I need from Zach McGibbon in Belleville.
There you go.
I would like it from Michael Cole, but I'm never going to get it. And I've long since given up on even thinking I'm going to get it.
Yeah.
I'm just going to, as a viewer, enjoy when Excalibur and Nigel McGuinness and some of these other guys give me a little something that doesn't feel like they're pushing their brand down my throat all the time. And that's how Michael Cole comes across. And I try to ignore him as much as I possibly can. Yeah. And quite frankly, I mean this, like, I don't care what he says, because nothing he says is actually going to rile me up. because I just don't care, because I know it's just branding. It's not Michael Cole telling you what Michael Cole thinks.
Right.
It used to be Michael Cole or anybody else telling you what Vince McMahon likes.
Yep.
Or thinks. But it's a little bit different now, but it's, again, it's not the same. And if he's telling me it's the number 2 luchador because they're going to get in a feud, which I think they are, then fine. Fine.
I think there's a better way to go about it. It's like, I don't like the second best idea. Like, could you imagine if we promoted ourselves as the second best wrestling podcast in Ottawa?
I would go, in Ottawa?
Yeah.
I was go, number 2 wrestling podcast? I'll take number 2 wrestling podcast.
Like we're the second best wrestling podcast in Ottawa. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But if we were going to get into a feud and actually come up against the number 1 and get that promotion and then take over the number 1 spot, I might be okay with it if it sells some tickets along the way.
Yeah. I mean, I would much rather he said, like, this is one of the best luchadors in the world, and soon he might go against one of the best luchadors here at the company, right? I don't need, ironically, I'm somebody that loves rankings and wants it to come back in AEW. But when you're doing promotions like this, I don't know. It's like when you go into a pizza restaurant, you're like, oh, this is the 4th best pizza in Denver. You know, like, I don't need that. Just tell me you're the best or not, right? I don't need you to, who are the 3 others?
What if everybody tells you that they're the best? Do you believe them?
That's right. That's promotion, baby.
Every corner, we're the best burger joint in Ottawa, and then in the very small, like, south side of
voted in 2006 in this journal.
Yeah. Some journal you've never heard of.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but I thought the Penta debut was good. I thought it was a good showcase. And one of the things I was telling people too is, like, a lot of the characters in WWE, let's face it, are kind of dorky. And so when you see like a cool character like Penta, you see the way he presents himself, the cool mask, and the moves that he does in a match, right? He stands out. So he's going to stand out at a debut like this. And so I think it's a good spot for him. And I've joked with others. It's like, you know how WWE fans love their chants. They love singing. They love their chants. Like, that's cinema to them, right? Boy, are they going to milk that El Zero Miedo chant like throughout Penta's matches. You thought he did it too much in AEW matches. Wait till he does it in these WWE matches. Oh,
I know. Every 3rd move, he'll be doing it.
Right.
I know.
He was shockingly reserved for his debut, but I can't wait. That is going to be fun.
Yeah, you're not wrong there, which is great that we end the podcast on something that you're not wrong about. It's a first, and we'll feel like we'll go out on a high. But no, this has been a spirited edition. Like I said, we're going to have a full review of Fire and Ice, the C4 show, coming up later in the week, because it deserves it, because it was a really good show with some talented people on the show, and we'll look forward to talking to Tanner Ryle about that, and lots to come. Zach, we're on the cusp of the Royal Rumble. We're on the cusp of some other things. You talk about boots on the ground. I'll give you a little hint of a preview. Very possibly boots on the ground for me for something very soon coming up in the world of professional wrestling.
All right.
Yeah, so hopefully we'll be able to do that.
Nice.
And let you know about that as well. But this has been fun. Always good to talk to you, my friend.
Yeah, always a fun time doing these chats.
For Zach McGibbon, I'm Lee Versage. Thanks again for listening to This Is Wrestling.